I was 16 when my mother decided I didn't belong in our own house anymore. It was my sister's engagement night, and the entire living room was glowing with lights, laughter, and fake smiles. But the moment I walked in, the air shifted. She had always been the perfect one, perfect grades, perfect manners, perfect stories. And I was the quiet shadow standing behind her shine. I didn't know what I had done until I heard her soft, trembling voice say, "She told them about the money." The room went silent before it exploded. My father's disappointment hit harder than his words. "Why would you do this?" he asked, not even waiting for my answer. I tried to explain, but no one wanted the truth. They wanted a villain. And somehow, it was easier to make me one. That was the moment I understood something painful. They had already chosen who to believe. As I stood there, blamed for something I didn't do, I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It felt planned. When the truth finally began to surface, it didn't explode the way lies do. It settled heavily into the room, slow and undeniable. The financial advisor called first, confused about a transfer that didn't match the timeline my sister had described. And within hours, the story she had built so carefully started cracking at the edges. Screenshots were checked, dates were verified, messages were recovered, and there it was, proof that the information had been shared from her phone, days before she ever blamed me for it. I remember standing in the same living room where they had once accused me, watching the color drain from their faces as reality rearranged everything they thought they knew. My father kept rereading the documents like they might magically change. My mother whispered, "This can't be right," but the evidence didn't need their belief. It existed with or without it. My sister tried to speak, but for the first time, her voice didn't control the room. I was stressed. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said, but intentions don't erase consequences. I didn't interrupt. I didn't smirk. I didn't remind them how easily they had doubted me. I simply stood there, calm in a way that made them uncomfortable. "You never asked me what really happened," I said quietly, and the silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. My father finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I could see the realization settling in. They hadn't just believed a lie, they had chosen convenience over truth. The power in the room shifted without noise. They were no longer judging me. They were confronting themselves. My sister's panic grew as questions replaced sympathy. "Why would you say she did it?" my mother asked her, voice shaking. There was no graceful answer, just fragments, just excuses. And every excuse pushed the spotlight further onto her. I didn't celebrate. I didn't attack. I let the truth do the work. That was the difference between us. She needed performance. I had proof. "I never betrayed this family," I said, steady and clear. "But you all betrayed me the moment you decided I was capable of it." No one argued. No one defended themselves. Because deep down, they knew it wasn't just about money. It was about how quickly they were willing to believe I was the problem. The documents lay on the table like a verdict already signed. My father ran a hand over his face. The confident authority he once held now replaced with uncertainty. "We made a mistake," he admitted, and the words sounded foreign in that house. My sister's composure collapsed completely then. The mask she wore so effortlessly had slipped, revealing fear, not of punishment, but of losing the position she had always occupied. The golden child, the trusted one. And suddenly, she wasn't either. I could feel the shift clearly. For years, I had been defending myself against assumptions, but now no defense was necessary. The truth had repositioned everything. I wasn't the accused anymore. I was the one standing untouched while the storm circled elsewhere. They expected anger. They expected me to demand an apology on my terms. Instead, I folded the copies of the records neatly and placed them back on the table. "I don't need revenge," I said calmly. I needed you to see who I really am. That calm unsettled them more than shouting ever could, because anger would have meant I still wanted something from them. Calm meant I had already detached. The room that once felt like a courtroom now felt like a confession chamber, but not mine. My sister avoided my eyes. My parents struggled with their own reflection in the situation. And in that quiet, undeniable moment, I understood something powerful. The tables hadn't turned because I fought harder. They turned because I stopped trying to compete. They had no idea that while they were doubting me, I was learning how to stand without them. I didn't raise my voice when everything finally settled. I didn't need to. By the time the apologies started coming, something inside me had already shifted into a place they couldn't reach with simple words. My father tried to explain how he felt pressured, how the situation moved too fast. My mother said she was scared of what people would think. My sister cried and said she never imagined it would spiral like that. I listened to all of them without interrupting, without rolling my eyes, without reopening the wound just to prove how deep it was. Because the truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. And clarity changes the way you stand in a room. I forgive you, I told them, and their shoulders relaxed too quickly, as if forgiveness meant everything could reset. But then I continued, calmly, steadily, forgiveness doesn't mean access. The silence that followed wasn't hostile, it was understanding. They realized this wasn't a dramatic reconciliation scene. There was no return to the old version of me, who tried harder, explained more, accepted less. I had learned what it felt like to be alone and survive it. I had built routines without their approval, decisions without their input, peace without their validation. The accusation had once made me question my worth. Now their regret showed me I never lacked it. I started visiting less, not out of spite, but out of balance. I answered calls when I wanted to, not out of obligation. I stopped trying to compete with my sister's image because I no longer needed to be seen as better. I only needed to be true. And strangely, that confidence unsettled them more than any confrontation could have. They were used to me defending myself. They weren't used to me being unmoved. Over time, the family dynamic adjusted. My sister became quieter, more careful with her words. My parents began asking instead of assuming, not because I demanded control, but because they understood what losing my trust had cost them. I didn't punish them. I protected myself. That was the difference. The real power wasn't in exposing the lie. It was in refusing to return to a place where I was easily blamed. I had drawn a boundary without shouting, created distance without hatred, and rebuilt respect without begging for it. And in the end, I understood something simple but unshakable. They didn't lose me that night because of a misunderstanding. They lost the version of me that tolerated being misunderstood.